Audio Jungle. Audio Jungle.
Hi, and thank you for watching my video on how to take off gel nails with an e-file. This is a really basic kind of tutorial using a not so complicated e-file, and this is pretty thin gel. As you can see, it is very grown out. Look at the ring around my cuticles. So it's been on for a couple weeks, so it is time for this to go. So what you need to do is make sure your e-file is charged before you go ahead and do this. My e-file is very basic. Basically, there's a switch here to charge your e-file, and then this is the on and off. This is to make it go higher and lower, and then this is to make the bit go one way or the other way, whatever that's called. Rotate different ways. So, and then you'll need cotton. I basically cut up square pieces of cotton into 4s and use that. You just need a big enough piece to be able to cover your nail. 100% acetone, which is going to be in this. I've been using this acetone. It's a women-owned company. Make sure that it's 100% acetone. It has to say 100%. And then some foil, which I also just cut up from a foil roll that you can buy at a grocery store. Make sure it's not cheap foil, because then when you try to wrap your fingers, it will break and get holes. So cheap foil, avoid. All right, so I'm gonna file all of these first and then wrap them all, just so you can sort of see the filing process all at one time. So this bit is going this way. So I'm gonna roll it down my nail, and I wanna make sure that I don't actually, that I have a good grasp on it and don't let it go up my nail, because otherwise I'll nick my cuticle and that will really hurt. And it takes a while to heal actually too. So, it's at a pretty decent speed. So I just kind of want to file as much off as I need to without filing too much into the nude gel that's on my nails, because I don't really want to file on my nail, because that will thin out my nail and make it a little bit weaker. So I'm just going to try to get along the sides. Get a little more on the tip of the nail. So where there's more white, it's gonna take a little bit longer to soak off if the gel is a little bit thicker still. Just because this part of your nail has natural heat that helps the gel come off faster, but this part's just on its own. So if you don't take enough off before you soak it, it will take a little bit longer to soak. And it's alright if you touch the side of your finger a little bit. It usually doesn't hurt there, as long as you have good control of the e-file and don't let it slip. And you want to make sure and keep doing different parts of the nail. Like, don't go over the center of the nail over and over again, or you're really going to start to feel the heat of the e-file on your nail, which is kind of uncomfortable. So just keep going over it in sections. A little bit more at the end. Ooh. An electric file like this works so much faster than just using an emery board type of file and doing it by hand, and it's a lot easier on your arms. But if you want to have a good arm workout, I guess using a regular file to file the gel down before you soak it off could work. It just takes a while. The thumb always seems to be the thickest nail, the thickest gel on the nail. I think that's looking about right though. Alright, and I'm ready to switch sides. You can see my manicure is turning to dust. Alright, so doing my right hand is a little trickier because I'm not left-handed. So it always feels a little more awkward. I'm sure it looks a little more awkward. The most important thing to do is to remember to switch the rotation so the barrel goes the opposite way that it did before. So yeah, always a little awkward. So just make sure that you pull down on the nail. So, here we go. It just sounds like a really high speed. Just make sure you have a really good grip. And it's good if you can balance your pinky or something on your hand for balance, just so that you have a little more control and aren't just like hanging in the air. So now that I'm a little more comfortable again, I'll take up the speed just a little bit so this goes a little faster. Every time gets a little bit easier, but it still always feels scary at first. So that's pretty good. And everything looks like it's covered with dust, which is my manicure. So now that they kind of look like that, you're ready to wrap. All right, so we're pretty much done with the e-file. So I'm gonna set that aside. And now it's time to soak them. So get out your acetone, and then one cotton square and one foil square. So make sure the square is completely saturated, not too much. Place it on top of the nail. And then I like to wrap it like this. So it's kind of a tight little bundle on the end of your finger. Again, it looks a little awkward on myself. It's a lot easier to do this on someone else. So I'll show it again and try to do it slow so you can more see what's going on. Bring the pieces together. Kind of roll them over and then bring it back. There's lots of ways to roll these. What's important is that you don't get holes and that they're wrapped tight so that the acetone doesn't evaporate. So once you make sure that they're all securely on there and tightened, it's time to soak. About 10 or 15 minutes is usually a good amount of time to start with. So now that you've been soaking, I've been soaking about 15 minutes. We'll see how easily they come off. So a few things I like to have to soak the gel off is a wood stick, like this, and I like to use this side mostly for this. I like to use a buffer and a pink file. This side's slightly more gritty than this side, which means that this side is a little bit more coarse and this side's a little smoother. So let's start with the pinky. So it's actually coming off pretty easily. So you just kind of want to scribble around like you're drawing with a pencil, just scribbling. Not too hard on the nail, you don't want to push down. Great. When you're working towards the end of the nail, you might want to support it with another finger, just so you don't press down on the end of the nail, which is usually a little bit more sensitive. You don't want to break anything, bend anything. If there's a spot that's a little bit thicker still, sometimes I like to use the pointy side and just sort of use that end to sort of scrape that a little bit more. But if it's still not quite ready to come off, that's okay. What I like to do in that situation is keep the foil wrap that I used before, which I think was this one. Get out any of the old gel that kind of stayed in there and actually dump a little bit more acetone in there. Just a little bit, just a few drops is enough. And just re-soak it. You can usually fit your own finger back in there pretty well. Yep, and just let it soak a little bit more. It's better to be a little more gentle and give it a little more soak time than to try to force it off. So there's always going to be a little bit of gel residue left on there. So I like to use a buffer and just lightly go over the surface of the nail. You can actually over buff the nail, which will leave it feeling a little bit sensitive and a little bit thin. So only the spots that really need it, only the spots that have gel. And if there's a spot that really has a little bit extra on it still, I'll just use the file and just lightly kind of go over that spot. All right, let's take a look at this one again. And it looks like it's ready to come off now. The thumbs are always the toughest for me just because the gel tends to go on thickest on the thumbs. Well, I put the gel on thickest on the thumbs, I guess just to make it look nice and even and pretty. But then coming off, it just always, and it's the biggest nail, so it just always takes a little bit of extra time and a little love. And they all feel pretty smooth. And that is the fast way to take off gel with an e-file. So much faster than a regular file. And I definitely need a manicure, don't I? So once again, thank you for watching this video. If it was helpful and you enjoyed it, subscribe to my YouTube channel, Amy Nick Nails, and also follow my Instagram at Amy Nick Nails. See you next time.